Hi, and thanks for watching another instructional video for CSEI 1300. In this video, we will cover how to declare and initialize variables in C++. When your program carries out computations, you will want to store values so that you can use them later. In a C++ program, you use variables to store values. Here, we will illustrate how to declare and initialize a variable called cans per pack. Declaration of a variable involves two steps, the first being to introduce some kind of a data type in front of the variable, such as int, double, or string, to denote what type of information will be stored within the variable. The second step is to use some kind of a descriptive name, so we have to identify a name for the information that we are going to store so that we can easily use this later in the program. So if we want to refer back to the number of cans in a pack, we can call a variable cans per pack to specifically store that information. To declare a variable, the final step will be to use a semicolon to end the definition. It's always possible to declare a variable without initializing it, but initializing it is always a good idea to have some base value. In the diagram that you see here, we have declared a variable cans per pack, which is of integer data type, and we have set its initial value equal to 6 so that we know what it starts with. Some other ways that we can think about variable definitions is that we can set one variable equal to other variables. So if you have 3 variables of the same data type, such as in figure 2 here, in the table where you see that int total equals to cans plus bottles, cans and bottles have to be integers in order to be stored within total. But as long as cans, bottles, and total are all of the same data type, we can store them together by adding the 2 variables cans and bottles, and then storing both the combined values of cans plus bottles into the variable total. Notice that you cannot initialize a number with a string, so we cannot initialize a different data type into a variable that does not contain or should not contain that information. So we can't assign a string to an integer and vice versa. And notice that we can define bottles in the 4th section of the table without initializing it. That's totally okay. However, it is always a good practice to initialize a variable because there might be junk values stored from a previous process in the computer. The other thing is that we can define variables, multiple variables at the same time. So in the 5th example in the table, you can see that we've declared cans and bottles one after the other in the same line. This is totally okay and is valid syntax. And lastly, notice that without a data type, we cannot assign this operation in the 6th box of the table. Bottles, we don't know if bottles has been declared or not. It looks like this would be an overwrite operation where we are assigning a new value to an existing variable. But if this is the first time that bottles is being declared in the program, we have to give it some data type in order for it to be initialized. Let's jump into some C++ code and look at how this works. I've got a basic main here, and I'm going to declare an integer called cans per pack. And you can see here that we've declared it, and the compiler and VS Code has recognized it as a correct variable. We have given it a data type, we've given it a name, and we have finished our definition with a semicolon. If we wanted to initialize it, we would set it equal to some value like 6. And now we've declared and initialized that variable. Now if I use a print statement and say how many cans are there, I'm going to print the information in cans per pack. So I'm printing the contents of the variable out to the user. And I'm going to do that now using the terminal. So I'm going to compile here. And let's check the contents of our cans per pack. Always remember to save your program, otherwise it might not be loading the correct iteration of what you had just been doing. So save it so that you get the correct output that you're looking for. Here you can see that cans is being printed with the value of 6, so we know that we've initialized this correctly. However, if we were to save this without initializing the variable, we might get some completely different value. Notice that we're getting a value of 0 just by circumstance. This could be different every time we compile the computer, but in this case, it's going to stay as 0. That's all for now. Thanks, and happy coding.